Honorable members, let us pray. Lord, the God of righteousness and truth, grant to our King and his government, to members of the Legislative Assembly, and to all in positions of responsibility, the guidance of your Spirit. May they never lead the province wrongly through love of power, desire to please, or unworthy ideals, but laying aside all private interests and prejudices, keep in mind their responsibility to seek to improve the condition of all. Amen. Honorable members, we will now be led in the singing of God Save the King by Michael Peters.
God save our gracious King, long live our noble King. God save the King, send him victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save the King.
Please be seated.
Introduction of visitors. Introduction of guests.
Honorable members, please be seated. It is with heartfelt sadness that I stand before you today to share the sense of loss by the Legislative Assembly following the pass of Monique Hamelin. The words I'm about to share were prepared by a former page and a current page, which illustrate the impact Monique had on all who knew her and those of us who were fortunate to work alongside her. Known for more than just her team-centered work ethic, Monique's warmth and generosity graced this institution from the moment she joined the Legislative Assembly Security Services in April 2018 and continued through her 2 impactful years as the page and ceremonial assistant. Monique will always be remembered for the light she brought into every room and the genuine pleasure she took in meeting new people. Monique touched the hearts of those even beyond the Sergeant at Arms office, whether through gifting anonymous Christmas baskets, penning a thoughtfully handwritten card, or through heartfelt conversations. For those in the office, Monique was a strong pillar, constantly listening and supporting new ideas with an open heart. She could always be counted on to break the ice with a hockey comment or a quick laugh. For the Legislative Assembly Security Service, Monique will be remembered for her camaraderie, her selflessness, and her unwavering willingness to help wherever she was needed. And finally, for the pages, Monique was more than simply a supervisor. She became a motherly figure, taking the time to celebrate their achievements. Be it birthdays, milestones, or university acceptances, Monique was attentive to every moment. For students overwhelmed by the prestige of the place, Monique created an inclusive environment that always put the team first. She left a deep impression on many, and while we sincerely wish her zest for life could continue to brighten these halls, the pages hope she may live on through their positive attitudes, smiles, and commitment to the values she imparted. Honorable members, I would ask we take a moment to reflect upon and honor the life and service of Monique Hamelin. Thank you, honorable members. Today we are deeply honored to have the family of Monique Hamelin seated in the Speaker's Gallery. I ask that you please rise if you are able. Her parents, Neil and Marion McDowell, her husband, Chris Hamelin, Monique's son, Julius Hamelin, her stepson, Jake Hamelin, her cousins, Jamie Terhorst and Madison Gingell, and good friend, Colleen Murphy. Thank you all for being here today. Please receive the warm welcome of the Assembly. members, I am pleased to introduce the 2025 municipal interns who are also seated in my gallery. These interns hail from across Alberta, getting a hands-on experience working in municipalities large and small. This program is supported by Municipal Affairs, and I'm proud to say many current municipally elected leaders and staff members started their love of public service through this very program. Please rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly. School groups today, starting with the member for Athabasca Barhead Westlock.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to rise and introduce to you and through you 37 students and 4 adults from the Ashmont Elementary School. It's an honor to have some of the future generation join us here today. I would ask that they please stand and receive the traditional warm welcome of this House.
Okay, members, sitting in the members gallery, I'm pleased to introduce Brian Desjardins, Executive Director for the Hangar Flight Museum, and Scott Dieterle, Global Public Affairs. Please rise and accept the welcome of the Assembly. Edmonton Southwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce to you and through you Kathy Hogg, former trustee with Prairie Rose School Division just outside of Medicine Hat, and former president of the Public School Board Association of Alberta, and forever a champion of public education. Please rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Grand Prairie Wapiti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my honor to introduce to you and through you my brother Ken and my nephew Gary and his wife. It's always good to have family here in the gallery, so please stand up and enjoy the warm welcome of the Assembly.
The Minister of Mental Health and Addiction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce to you and through you a very special group of people from Oxford House. Oxford House has a mission to provide people in recovery from addiction as a supportive program, a safe home to achieve a productive, rewarding, clean, sober life. Mr. Speaker, proof that recovery works. I invite Earl, Aliska, Riker, Sierra, Ryan, Tim, Vince, Cassandra, and Montana to please rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Edmonton Highlands, Norwood.
Of my incredible constituency team members. Katie Josie is my constituency manager, and she has the distinction of having put up with me for nearly 6 years, and she's absolutely incredible. And Shailene Hughes is our fabulous social work practicum student who has taken on so much work and is doing it so well. So please rise, Katie and Shailene, and receive the welcome of this House.
Pam Rose.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to rise today and introduce to you and through you Dr. Weller, Dr. Rob McCorkle with the faculty of the University of Calgary Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Dr. Megan Bergman, Dr. Jamie Frederick, and Madison Dubé with the Alberta Veterinary Medical Association. I request that you rise and receive the traditional warm welcome of this chamber.
Edmonton Gold Bar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to introduce to you and to all members of the Assembly Joseph Larocque. He's a grade 10 student at McNally School, and he's here to bear witness to the destruction of the charter rights and freedoms of Albertans in Bill 9. I ask that he please rise and receive the traditional warm welcome of the Assembly.
Grand Prairie.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my privilege to introduce to you and through you and to this Assembly 3 of my council members from Grand Prairie, 3 councillors, as well as our mayor, Mayor Jackie Clayton, Councillor Mike O'Connor, and Councillor Jenna Flack. I would say Grand Prairie is the best people, and we have the best council. Please rise and receive the warm welcome of our Assembly.
Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce to you and through you Mr. Blair McCormick, his wife Tess, and their daughter Clara. Claire is here to see Alberta democracy in action, and her family are up here all the way from Calgary. I ask them to please rise and for you all to give the warm welcome to this Assembly. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to rise today to introduce to you and through you Ren and Rachel, quickly becoming two of my best friends from Canmore. They're community leaders, athletes, and incredible champions for our LGBTQ community. They're here to bear witness to the stripping of trans rights through Bill 9. Please rise. The board welcome.
The Minister of Justice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce Leah McInnes, a nurse from Saskatchewan who faced disciplinary action after bravely speaking out and voicing her opinion. Her experience shows exactly why Bill 13 is needed, because no professional should ever fear losing their job over an opinion. Please rise and receive the warm welcome of this House.
Sherwood Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce to the Assembly Vivian Mills, a constituent from Sherwood Park. She's here to represent PFLAG Canada, a national charitable organization that was founded by parents who needed help learning how to accept and support their 2S LGBTQ+ children. Please rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly, Vivian.
St. Albert. St. Albert. St. Albert, okay. Calgary Falcon Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to introduce to you and through you to all members of the Assembly, Rajdeep Sal, a bodybuilding trailblazer who won the prestigious International Federation of Bodybuilding and Fitness Pro Card, the first Indo-Canadian to do this, and inspiring countless others to pursue excellence in fitness and health. I ask that she rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Calgary East.
Speaker, it is my pleasure to rise today and introduce to you and through you Mr. Manjeet Singh Jaswal, who represents the Path Foundation Calgary organization. Mr. Jaswal is joined by Mr. Chanan Singh Jaswal, Mr. Tarun Kumar Shahe. I would request this esteemed team to please rise and receive the traditional warm welcome of the House.
Ministerial statements. Member statements.
The member for Edmonton West Henday.
Today marks Trans Day of Remembrance. It is a day when we reflect on the violence faced by vulnerable members of our community. We remember those lost to suicide or murder because of transphobia. In the last year, we saw the loss of life of 354 trans folks across the world and 5,000 since 2008. Here at home, our community is worried about the safety and future of trans folks in this province. Our job as legislators is to ensure that all members of our community are uplifted and protected. Today marks the 10-year anniversary of when the NDP amended the Alberta Bill of Rights to protect transgender Albertans. I find it very difficult today to not call out the harm caused by his stripping of charter rights away from the trans, non-binary, and two-spirit community, and the overwhelming sense of grief, fear, and hopelessness that we are all feeling right now. On Trans Day of Remembrance, this solemn day, we must remember not only the dead, but hold on to our living kin, because we are in the darkest of the night before the dawn. To my kin, we have been here before. We have each other. Do not lose hope, because a better tomorrow is possible. And you have a team on this side of the House that will always fight for you. If you or a loved one need to talk to someone, please call the Trans Lifeline at 1-877-330-6366, Brightline at 1-844-702-7483, or the National Suicide Crisis Line at 988. Please know you are loved by us and so many Albertans. We will always protect the dolls.
The member for Leduc Beaumont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Saturday is National Housing Day, and here in Alberta we have reason to celebrate. Last year, Alberta smashed records when it came to housing starts, and this year we're on track to beat that record once again. Alberta is leading the nation in housing starts and almost single-handedly keeping the country's housing start numbers from collapsing. That's right, Mr. Speaker, a province with less than 12% of Canada's population accounts for a quarter of all housing starts in the country this year. And we're not slowing down anytime soon. Alberta is also leading the way in lowering rents. Rent is down more than 7% province-wide, Mr. Speaker. And when it comes to affordable housing, our record level of investments are paying off. Just ask the NDP's favourite former Edmonton Mayor, Amarjeet Sohi, who thanked our housing minister for increasing the city's affordable housing supply by more than 30% in just 2 years. Now, Mr. Speaker, you would think all Albertans would want to celebrate this amazing news, but of course you would be wrong. The NDP and their housing critic can't stand it when Alberta succeeds. You know, Mr. Speaker, we hear a lot from the opposition about how much they love Canada, but lately I'm starting to wonder if they even like Alberta. It's an alarming and telling trait that the NDP would rather see Alberta fail so that they can score cheap political points, as opposed to seeing Alberta prosper.
Shame.
We see this every day in the House. They ignore or deny the facts and twist the good work our government is doing to propel Alberta forward, choosing instead to respond with fear, hate, vitriol, and bitterness, highlighted by a disgraceful attempt to use a member statement to compare our members to Nazis. All this under a new leader who promised to raise the level of decorum in the House, then leads an opposition who trades in politically motivated attacks that bend the truth past its breaking point. Mr. Speaker, our government will continue to move past the anger and fear-mongering on housing and continue to lead the country on this important issue.
The honourable member for Calgary-Clyde.
History will not look kindly on the UCP's time in government. We're seeing that now as citizens launch several recall petitions against the government MLAs, and folks from all walks of life share their voices in a loud and consistent outcry as they stand up for their neighbours and their communities. We will likely see more of this solidarity as the UCP continues to pick and choose which Albertans get to be strong and free. Because under this UCP government, it's no longer all of us. The notwithstanding clause has now been used 4 times in less than 1 month. This was never its intent, as constitutional experts continue to point out. I will say this. In Alberta, we certainly find ourselves in extreme circumstances. Under a government that has made undemocratic and authoritarian decisions its hallmark. They will tell Albertans that they don't take it lightly. But they know that the notwithstanding clause is a hammer to use when legislation is a violation of human rights and won't stand up in the courts. They don't use it indiscriminately. They use it in a cold, politically calculated, and near surgical fashion for political benefit. This UCP government used this hammer against teachers and are now poised to use it against trans and queer kids. And we've all seen this movie before. If any group isn't free, then none of us are. Many of us see very clearly that immigrants are the likely target next. But I have hope, Mr. Speaker. What gives me hope is that Albertans know that their government has gone too far and will continue to loudly resist. They will not stand for this abuse of the notwithstanding clause. They will not quietly suffer overreach. We know that better is possible, and Alberta's New Democrats stand with them now and will continue to do so when we elect a New Democrat government.
The member for Red Deer South.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is one of the best nations in the world for getting abortions. Yet Canada is founded on Judeo-Christian principles. Our Constitution, quote, Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God. Judeo-Christian principles recognize that men and women are children of God, each having a divine nature and destiny. They affirm the family as ordained of God and that children are a blessing. This is the opposite of Canada's failure to do nothing about abortion, in particular late-term abortions. Many Albertans do not want a society that is best at late-term abortions, and many of these Albertans feel that they are ignored on this matter sacred to them. But Alberta has a Citizen Initiative Act, and most Albertans, regardless of faith or background, agree that it is reasonable to have some limits on late-term abortions. That is the case in most democratic jurisdictions. The threshold to have a referendum about late-term abortion is about 178,000 Albertans. And what is the best antidote to abortion? More truth, Mr. Speaker. And referendums provide opportunities for more truth, to share facts in the public square, allowing Albertans to judge for themselves. Seeing things as they really are will result in less abortion, not by force of law, but by the exercise of moral agency informed by truth. Mr. Speaker, it will be good for Albertans to have a referendum with honest conversations on late-term abortion, speaking the truth in love as each best understands this with respect to all. Thank you.
Honourable members, it is 1:50, which means it is time for oral question period, and the first question belongs to the Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have never seen an Auditor General's report quite like this one on the Dynalife scandal. The very headline says, Auditor General finds failures in governance and procurement processes leading to lab services disruption. The Auditor General says, quote, documents were either not provided or were heavily redacted. Can the Premier explain today why her government did not cooperate with the Auditor General in the preparation of this report, and what measures she is personally taking to ensure more transparency in the future?
The Honourable Premier.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the most serious allegations were levelled against AHS when the new CEO destroyed the notes of the outgoing CEO, Mauro Kies. And so I think AHS does have a lot to answer for with its internal practices. We have known for some time that there were problems within AHS procurement, which is why we have taken procurement.
Members, I just need to hear whoever's speaking, and should only be one at a time. Carry on, please.
Which is why we have taken procurement into Acute Care Alberta, and I can tell you that the government did in fact fully cooperate with the Auditor General's investigation, and any suggestion to the contrary is incorrect.
I don't think you're on the list right now, but your time will come. Honourable Leader.
Interesting that the Premier went back to her usual thing about blaming the reptilian shapeshifters who apparently run AHS, but that's not what the report says. The Premier runs the most secretive and least transparent government in Alberta's history. And this is a pattern of behaviour. They did it to Justice Wyant. They're doing it to the Auditor General, who they fired. The Dynalife report shows even the Auditor General, with all his power and authority, was stonewalled and obstructed by this government. Will this embarrassing report finally spur the Premier into action to tell Albertans what's really going on in her government?
Point of order was noted at 1:52. The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We respect the retrospective view that we always get from the Auditor General. And in the case of the housing issue, which we solved 3 years ago, we also solved this issue 2.5 years ago. We knew that there was a problem right after the election. We saw that the company was not able to provide the monopoly service for lab services. We transferred it very quickly over to Alberta Precision Labs, which I can tell you has done a terrific job of reducing the number of waits for lab services, and will continue to do that. And I think that it shows the decisive action of our health minister.
Honourable member.
The Premier seems uncharacteristically unsteady on her answers here, and she said any allegation that the Auditor General was not cooperated with is incorrect. Well, perhaps she should take it up with the Auditor General, because he says the government interfered in over 10,000 documents reviewed by his office, that the more he dug, the worse it got. He writes, quote, minimal records were kept. He says, quote, records were password protected and inaccessible, missing or destroyed. And he says, quote, notebooks were destroyed despite our request to preserve evidence. This smells like a cover-up. Can the Premier tell us precisely what her—
The Honourable Premier.
I already explained, Mr. Speaker, that AHS did indeed sound like they had bad record-keeping practices, and I would hope that they would be able to address that. Our government fully cooperated. In fact, what we discovered is that initially, that when we were told that it was going to be $100 million worth of savings, The numbers were wrong. It was supposed to be $35 million worth of savings. Those numbers were wrong. When we discovered that it was going to actually cost more, we acted quickly, decisively. We ended up turning all of it over to Alberta.
Members, everybody gets respect here. We heard the question, and if I have anything to do with it, we will hear the answer. Go ahead, Premier.
Ended up turning it over to Alberta Precision Labs, and the health minister was able to ensure that people got the timely access that they needed to lab services, and that was what it was all about, Mr. Speaker.
Leader, for the second set of questions, the Leader of the Official Opposition.
The Premier loves to blame AHS and tells on herself every time she does it because she runs AHS. She's handpicked the CEOs, but in this case, she doesn't have that defense. The Auditor General's report makes it clear. The Minister and the Department of Health undermined AHS at every turn. Right. The Minister ordered AHS to proceed with the privatization despite the red flags that AHS put up, just like Turkish Tylenol. AHS staff were discouraged from raising concerns for fear of repercussions. The government, not the chemtrails people, created this culture. What concrete steps is the Premier taking to end the bullying and intimidation?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we have to examine the timeline on this. Decisions were made on this in May of 2022. Neither this health minister nor I were in this chamber, nor was the member opposite. When we came in April of 2023, after the election in May, we saw that there were problems with the way in which the Dynalife contract was being administered. People were waiting too long, and that was the solution, Mr. Speaker, that we knew that we had to ensure that people got the lab services that they need.
You should talk to your House Leader if you want to be on the list. Until then, we need to hear from whoever is on the list, and right now, that is only the Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I came in, I saw a problem, as did the Health Minister. We fixed it, and now we have an excellent lab services being run by Alberta Precision Labs.
Honourable Leader, a point of order at 157.
The Premier's sense of history is a little bit confused. I seem to recall an education minister sitting as a senior member of the cabinet table who was very much involved in these conversations and these decisions. She certainly was in the chamber. Alberta students remember that.
Yes.
The only experts that this government seems to listen to are the voices in their heads and the extreme people they follow on Twitter.
That's right.
This misadventure was doomed from the start. 125 million wasted taxpayer money. That's all the Auditor General was able to find. Massive disruption to patient services. Has the Premier now learned that if you put out a request for proposal and only one person replies, don't do it?
Yeah.
The Honourable Premier.
As the member opposite wants to take a trip down memory lane, maybe he'll remember that Dynalife operated successfully in Northern Alberta even under the 4 years of the NDP. There was no indication that they wouldn't have been able to handle more of the services until we realized that they couldn't. When they came in and they looked at taking over all of the services, it was going to cost more money, and so we ended up doing the responsible thing. We took over their assets and we took over their operations through Alberta Precision Lab. The members opposite should be happy. Government funded, government run. This is exactly what they've been asking for in healthcare, Mr. Speaker.
A point of order was noted at 158. And let's try to hear the question and the answer this time, everybody. Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I've got many years of experience working in business and in government, and one of the first rules of working with the private sector, which the Premier never has, is you never write a request for proposal that is tailor-made for one proponent. That's a guarantee that you're going to get a bad price. And if only one person replies to the RFP, you start again. But this government rammed through this Dynalife proposal despite not having a business plan, despite knowing in advance that it wouldn't save any money. Why was this government so obsessed with handing taxpayer money over to one company, Dynalife?
The Honourable Premier of Alberta.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can tell you that this government made the decision to hand over operations to one operation, and that is Alberta Precision Labs. We made the decision that after we saw that that Dynalife was unable to manage the entire province, they ended up giving up the services that they had been running for 10 years successfully, and now it's Alberta Precision Labs who runs it, Mr. Speaker. We've been very happy with the outcome, as has the clients who have gone to use their services, and we support their continued operation of the service, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member.
Mr. Speaker, it's worth remembering that at least half of the members of the cabinet opposite were in the cabinet at that time.
That's right.
This collapsing government has had a terrible month. and part of it is their horrible sense of timing. They stripped away the rights of trans people on the 10th anniversary of giving trans people rights in this chamber on Trans Day of Remembrance, and they announced an American-style privatization of the healthcare system on the very day the Auditor General says their privatization misadventure cost Albertans hundreds of millions of dollars. They're bad at governing. How will the Premier ensure that her latest privatization misadventure
Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We believe in competition and we believe in choice. Most of our hospitals are run by Alberta Health Services, which is government-run and government-funded. We also have Covenant Health, which is an independent service that is government-funded. We've got 50 different surgical centres that offer competition, many of which continued to operate when the NDP were in government a number of years ago. This is how the system is going to work well, Mr. Speaker, is by offering more opportunities for patients to get treatment. We've actually seen an increase in the number of surgeries, Mr. Speaker, and we intend to see more.
Leader of the official opposition.
The Premier talks about competition and choice, but her government created a private sector monopoly with very, very bad procedures. They don't even know how to do privatization right. The Auditor General tells us that the government continued the Dynalife procurement despite knowing that the cost savings were unattainable. They didn't evaluate Dynalife's assumptions. The risk assessments lacked depth and detail. There was no business plan. Can the Premier guarantee that her chartered surgical facilities that she loves so much actually will not end up costing taxpayers more? Because despite what she's going to say,
when I stand up, it's time to sit down. That's how it works. The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, in fact, our health minister has done some great work looking at the cost of services in all of the entities that provide surgical services, and indeed we can affirm that the cost of surgeries in the charter surgical centres are substantially lower than what we are seeing in many of our public hospitals. We're also seeing that because we pay them based on the services they perform, they actually do more surgeries. When we started, they were doing 40,000 surgeries in 2019. They're now doing over 65,000 today, and that's going to continue, Mr. Speaker, with their funding following the patient and activity-based funding.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Of course, the evidence shows that wait times have gone up and costs have also gone up under her scheme. But this is my last question for the week, Mr. Speaker, so I'm going to make it easy for the Premier. This Dynalife scandal hurt people's health. It caused unbelievable stress. My own mom couldn't get an appointment to confirm her infection. She waited for hours in a room during respiratory virus season, all while Albertans transferred hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money to a private company. So will the Premier do something I've never heard her do before? Will she take responsibility and will she apologize to Albertans?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I took responsibility in May of 2023 when myself and the new health minister took a look at the situation and said that it was a mistake, and we ended up turning it over to Alberta Precision Labs. And the nice part about it, Mr. Speaker, was within a matter of weeks, our hard-working public servants at Health Sciences Association, all those incredible lab workers, they managed to solve that backlog very quickly, and we have not had the same kind of problem since. And so, Mr. Speaker, we're very pleased that we were able to identify the issues, we were able to ensure that we acted quickly, and we were able to ensure that patients got the services they needed.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Decore.
The Auditor General's report on Dynalife shows this government wasted over $125 million on failed live privatization scheme. Albertans faced long delays for routine tests, and the public system had to step in to fix the chaos. Experts warned the UCP government that privatization wouldn't save money or improve patient outcomes, but they completely ignored. Why did this government gamble with Albertans' health care and ignore its own experts in pursuit of failed experiment?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I believe the Premier has answered this very well over the last 9 questions that have come forward. In 2023, immediately following the general election and my appointment as the Minister of Health, the Premier and myself recognized that there was an issue pretty well from day one. It was on my plate to fix it, and we did fix it, Mr. Speaker. We, in fact, made sure that Alberta Precision Labs could, in fact, run this contract. So that's what we did, Mr. Speaker.
Edmonton Decor.
The Auditor General found this government bypassed procurement safeguards and failed to assess financial risks before signing a 15-year, $5 billion contract with Dynalife.
Terrible.
They didn't even make a business plan, Mr. Speaker. Those protections would have prevented waste and protected taxpayers' dollars. Instead, Albertans paid a huge price for ideologically driven political decisions. Why did this government override these safeguards and sign a deal that jeopardizes accountability and fiscal responsibility?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, we are taking the Auditor General's report and recommendations very seriously. We are making sure that we are putting procurement in a different location. AHS, I have said it from the beginning, has had issues around procurement. I want to remind everyone this was in fact an AHS contract at the end of the day, but we made sure as soon as we identified the problem that we corrected it. And so I can safely say that labs and diagnostics have improved significantly.
Edmonton Decor. Two are noted at 2:06.
The alarming Dynalife report comes the same day that this government announced two-tiered American-style healthcare privatization, Mr. Speaker.
Yep.
The report is clear. Privatization by this government meant Albertans endured long wait times, missed diagnoses, and couldn't rely on lab services because of the chaos, wasteful, and reckless privatization. Now that our labs are public, wait times for routine tests have dropped significantly. Will the Premier learn from her mistakes and stop the American style?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What the members opposite are saying is absolutely inaccurate. In fact, what Albertans deserve is what every European developed nation is enjoying, which is lower wait times. They have a universally funded public health system that also allows for the private system to augment their services. Mr. Speaker, I don't know why the members opposite don't feel that Albertans deserve what Europeans enjoy each and every day.
The member for Edmonton Highlands Norwood.
I have a non-binary family member. I believe these decisions are very personal and should not be debated in public. We shouldn't be making any child feel like the issues they're struggling with are something that's a political football. That's a direct quote from the Premier, words she uttered just a few years ago. The same Premier who time and time again claimed to be a defender of human rights. Live and let live was her motto. So how can that same Premier now, in good conscience, attack the charter rights of Albertans? What's changed for this Premier? And I'm not the only one wondering. A whole lot of folks are watching.
Here. Honourable Minister for Multiculturalism.
Mr. Speaker, our government is protecting children's rights to make adult decisions when they are adults. Making decisions that are often permanent and irreversible on one's biological sex should be a decision made as an adult. Our government will protect a child's right until they are mature adults and have a full understanding of what that means for the rest of their life, the consequences and the ramifications.
My apologies, I misnamed the minister, and we are at the stage where there's no preamble after on the supplementaries. Edmonton Highlands Norwood.
Given that it's clear the Premier won't do the right thing, let's try another MLA over there who said, and I quote, "There is zero intention to attack vulnerable Albertans and their access to health care." That was the minister now responsible for municipal affairs just a few years ago, claiming that he would not allow Albertans, particularly members of the queer and trans community, to lose any rights. So what's changed for that minister? Why is he now willing to betray his word? Why do human rights protected by the Canadian Charter no longer matter to that minister or apparently to anyone on that side of the House?
The Honourable Minister for Arts, Culture and the Status of Women.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said again, our government is making decisions about protecting children's rights to make adult decisions when they are adults. Mr. Speaker, many of these decisions are often permanent and irreversible. Any decisions that would affect an individual's biological, sex, and possible reproductive abilities in the future, that needs to be made when you're an adult and you understand the full consequences and ramifications of that. Our government will unequivocally stand by protecting children's right to make adult decisions when they're adults.
Honourable member.
Given that very minister, the one who claims Alberta's queer and trans community in her portfolio, today, in a statement about the Transgender Day of Remembrance, she said that she supports trans people in a province where everyone can live free from violence and prejudice. Unbelievable. The evidence is clear. Youth living in jurisdictions with anti-trans legislation are more likely to attempt suicide. Given that Bill 9 is a full act of violence against the trans community, we need that minister to stand up today to denounce her government's harmful Bill 9 and say no to the use of the notwithstanding clause again.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there is no place for hate or intolerance in our province, and violence against the transgender community is unacceptable. On November 20th, we remember those who lost their lives to anti-trans violence and reflect on our shared responsibility to champion acceptance, respect, and understanding for all. Our government supports the 2S LGBTQI+ community and will continue partnering with individuals.
Order! Order! We don't need outbursts like we just had. We have a system here you've all agreed to with the standing orders where one person at a time talks and gets heard. Trying to outshout the person whose turn it is not how things go around here. And I will thank all members to adhere to those standards that you set. Now there's 3 points of order at 2:11. Not a proud accomplishment, folks. Perhaps we can do better. The next question goes to the member for Vermilion, Lloydminster, Wainwright.
Explicit word in this chamber. That needs to be addressed right now.
Well, Honourable Member, my answer is that we deal with the points of order when we deal with the points of order, and that's when we'll deal with the points of order. And I didn't hear what was said, and we'll get to that. Members, stop. Honourable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Alberta's population is growing at a remarkable pace, and many communities are experiencing increased enrollment, which has caused classroom pressures. Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Education and Childcare, can he explain why these new schools and modernizations are necessary at this time, and what specific challenges or needs prompted our government to announce the Schools Now program and build more than 130 schools across the province that will create over 200,000 student spaces?
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, over the course of the past couple of years, we've seen a dramatic and sudden increase in our population overall as a province, which of course has also cascaded into enrollment in our schools. Just go back very quickly to 2022. Several of our school divisions were looking to shut down student spaces and close down schools. Fast forward to today, and we've seen an 80,000 student increase over the last 3 years alone. So that's why the government felt it was necessary to move forward with the Schools Now project to build and renovate 130 schools across the province.
A point of order was noted at 2:12. The Honourable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for that response. Given that Schools Now program has launched dozens of projects in its first year in communities across the province, to the Minister of Education and Childcare, can you please provide this chamber and all Albertans a list of communities and school boards that are receiving new or modernized schools through this program's most recent announcement? And can you please explain how these locations were selected for the program?
The Honourable Minister.
I was very pleased to announce today that 5 more projects are being accelerated through the Schools Now program. A new Francophone K-6 school in North Calgary is now moving to construction. A new Francophone high school in West Edmonton also moving to construction. The Delton Replacement Schools project is also now ready to move to construction, and the Spruce Avenue School replacement also moving to construction. In addition, a Francophone school modernization project in Plamondon is ready to move to design, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you again to the Minister for that response. Given that classroom size and complexity are ongoing concerns for families and educators, and further given that Schools Now program aims to create thousands of new student spaces, to the same minister, will the addition of these new schools and classroom spaces help reduce class sizes in the affected communities, and what measures are in place to ensure that staffing and resources keep pace with this increased capacity?
The Honourable Minister.
These new schools will make a considerable impact in reducing class sizes across the province, Mr. Speaker. As I mentioned a moment ago, in 2022, I know, for example, the Calgary Board of Education was looking to wind down 14,000 student spaces, equivalent to 22 schools. I know Edmonton Catholic had shut down a couple of schools as well, as the enrollment projections were simply not there. Of course, in 2023 and 2024, our population exploded at unprecedented rates, which is why we have moved this initiative forward and will build the schools that Albertans need.
The member for Banff-Kananaskis.
Vaccines save lives when people can get them. The provincial government is responsible to create public health campaigns informing people how to get vaccinated. But this government muffled the voice of the chief medical officer, diminished the ability and authority of public health officials. This disproportionately affects rural Albertans who have less choices of care nearby. Rural Albertans who want to get vaccinated need options, not American-style health care. So what will the minister do to make sure they have real access and not just more bills?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the question. We are continuing to make sure that we promote vaccination right across the province. In fact, Mr. Speaker, we increased the number and the amount that we were spending on social media, as well as making sure that products were put into 14 different languages. We extended clinics, we extended hours for clinics in regards to the measles, and I'm happy to say that we've seen a steady decline in measles, particularly in the north and the south where it was most prevalent.
Given that's not the case in the Bow Valley, Mr. Speaker, where people at the door are telling me they can't get a COVID vaccine because they can't afford one, 811 is too busy and they can't get an appointment. Given that emergency rooms across rural Alberta are often closed at night, leaving Albertans to drive from hospital to hospital hoping to find one open, and to date, 25 communities have reduced service due to lack of staff like doctors, ER nurses, etc. Because of this government's continual attack on those contracts, given plans for American-style health care is going to hurt rural communities even more. What will the minister do for rural health care?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We, in fact, have a rural health strategy, and we are targeting rural communities to make sure that they have the resources they need. It's why, Mr. Speaker, as I've said numerous times, that we have seen the highest growth in physician movement to Alberta in the last year alone, Mr. Speaker. When the members opposite were in government, there was roughly 5,200 family physicians. We now have over 6,200 family physicians, Mr. Speaker. We have more nurse practitioners, more paramedics, more staff to deal with rural issues.
Given those new staff are not in rural Alberta, Mr. Speaker, because I still have constituents who can't find a doctor. Given that the businesses like the Sutina Pharmacy are struggling to retain trained pharmacists whose visa extension hasn't been approved, I get continual emails from nurses who are also struggling to stay in the Bow Valley due to the cost of housing and the affordability crisis, and two-tiered American-style healthcare will make recruitment in rural communities even harder for our valued public healthcare system. Why is the government doubling down on failed American-style healthcare in rural communities?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, the members opposite continue to be incorrect, because we are in fact looking to well-developed countries that have universal health care that also provide a strong private health care system, Mr. Speaker, which in fact has increased access. Mr. Speaker, we are looking to make sure that rural communities have the resources they need. In fact, Mr. Speaker, when I was first became the minister in 2023, we only had a handful of people taking new patients. We have over 602 doctors taking new patients now.
Members. Edmonton McClellan, member for Edmonton McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the recent conventions of Alberta municipalities, rural municipalities of Alberta, and the Alberta School Boards Association, I asked dozens of councillors, mayors, reeves, and school board trustees if their town had a scheduled bus service. They told me that almost none of their communities had bus service since Greyhound abandoned Western Canada over 7 years ago. Why has the minister wasted years of economic opportunity for small-town Alberta by failing to foster the redevelopment of a scheduled rural bus transportation network?
The Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I spoke with hundreds, if not thousands, of councillors over the last 2 weeks. What they want are core services provided to their residents, and that is in line with this government's priority. Core services include fixing water mains when they break, filling potholes, keeping taxes low, making sure garbage pickup works in urban centres, making sure that we have the roads graded and plowed. These are the core services that they're focused on, never mind the large task we have together between municipalities and the province to replace aging infrastructure so that our communities can last another 120 years into the future with this great province we have across rural and urban Alberta.
The member for Edmonton McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, the government ignoring the true wishes of Albertans in rural Alberta who have been asking for years for rural bus transportation. Now, given that large bus lines in Alberta provide service only between large population centres, leaving almost all of rural Alberta without bus service, and given that bus service to small communities would provide them with a vital economic and public safety line, I asked the minister to quit taking rural Alberta for granted, do his job, and recognize the transportation needs of people, businesses, and employers in rural Alberta. When will the Minister of Transportation make public his detailed plans to restore comprehensive province-wide scheduled bus?
Honourable Minister of Transportation and Corridor.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And it is a little bit ironic, Mr. Speaker, that the NDP is talking about a rural bus system that they never created when they were in government, Mr. Speaker. But when it comes to what the NDP leader did when it talks about transportation projects, the Green Line in Calgary is a great example, Mr. Speaker. He had grandiose plans for $6 billion for a Green Line that never even got built.
The honourable member.
Mr. Speaker, the Green Line is part of a multi-billion-dollar expenditure in urban Alberta. We're talking about rural Alberta, Mr. Speaker. This government keenly forgets to spend any attention on. Now, the rural bus service is something I've been talking about for years, Mr. Speaker, and they're conveniently trying to shuffle the deck and move away from that topic because they failed so miserably on it. When will this minister show up and deliver rural bus transportation for Albertans so they can safely and securely get around this beautiful province?
Mr. Speaker, it wasn't very long ago that there was an NDP leader that told Albertans to take a bus to BC because they couldn't find jobs here under an NDP government, Mr. Speaker. But if the NDP wants to talk about rural Alberta, we've actually increased the highway maintenance all across this province, Mr. Speaker, 5% in budget 2025. STIP has gone up 11% under this government. That builds a whole bunch of important infrastructure all across this province, Mr. Speaker, and also $225 million in capital maintenance and renewal just to make our roads safer here in the province, Mr. Speaker. All more than the NDP.
Order. It's time for the member for Lesser Slave Lake.
Mr. Speaker, Alberta's Justice Minister and his ministry are entrusted with defending the rule of law and protecting Albertans from government overreach and ensuring a separation of powers. But given, under this UCP government, we've seen a troubling pattern. When government officials raise concerns, they fire them. When their own MLAs raise concerns, they kick them out of caucus, with lawsuits intended to intimidate. And given, when rights get in the way, they reach for the notwithstanding clause. To the Justice Minister, why is this government increasingly turning to lawsuits and constitutional overrides instead of the normal business of transparent, responsible government?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think the member is referring to Bill 9. I'd recall that the member voted in favour of Bill 9. I find that to be incredibly ironic, Mr. Speaker, but we continue to be part of a growing international consensus that says this: we love and support all children. We do not want to rush them into any permanent medical choices before their brains and their bodies are fully developed. To do so, Mr. Speaker, I think would be incredibly dangerous and irresponsible, and we're not going to wear the burden of that, Mr. Speaker. We're going to protect our children at all costs.
Honourable member.
Pardon me. Given I asked the minister what time it was, not how to make a watch, and given that Albertans trust the justice system and the courts will be bipartisan and not intended for government interference and to keep government obvious, and given this UCP government loves to sue people who oppose them, like the lawsuit against Athana Mentzelopoulos, or now the lawsuit against myself and the former infrastructure minister. And now this government wants to rewrite recall laws the moment they become inconvenient. To the same minister, why should Albertans believe this isn't a government trying to change the rules mid-game because they know they can't win?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We're not creating any watches. I'd hope the member can try and keep up, Mr. Speaker. The fact of the matter is that our legislation, Bill 9, is here to protect children. That's the bottom line of what we're talking about here, Mr. Speaker. We're not outliers. The international community is moving in this direction. We know that Alberta is at the forefront of what is happening.
I know everybody thinks they're funny, and there's a place to be funny. It's not in here. At least not until it's your time to stand up. Right now, we'll hear from the Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, Alberta continues to be at the forefront in Canada in protecting our children and our children's rights. The member is speaking about a personal lawsuit that involves him and a party that has nothing to do with this government, Mr. Speaker. We're not going to entertain questions that have nothing to do with government policy.
Hear, hear. Honourable member.
Given underdogs from the north already believes roles like this in a place like this are impossible for them to imagine. And given I was the first Indigenous UCP MLA to be elected in this House and the first one to be kicked out of caucus, and given no Indigenous MLA or MP has ever been sued by a political party in the history of Canada until now, and further given those two records certainly won't put them in the Government Hall of Fame, to the Minister of Indigenous Relations, what message does this send to the Indigenous youth of this province?
The Honourable Justice Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The member opposite is incorrect. The member opposite presumably is being sued for trying to take a name that doesn't belong to him, a political party name that doesn't belong to him, Mr. Speaker. It has nothing to do with government policy. It doesn't even involve any government ministry, Mr. Speaker. The member has an issue to deal with. That's a lawsuit involving himself and another party. I suggest he deal with it in the proper forum, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Calgary-Buller-McCall.
Mr. Speaker, I hosted a town hall meeting at the beginning of the session to hear directly from my constituents. One person told me how students are scared to go to school, bullying is on the rise, classrooms are overcrowded, and sports staffs are stretched thin. Every child deserves to feel safe and respected in their learning environment. Yeah. To the Minister, what immediate and specific steps will you take to ensure schools remain a safe learning place for everyone?
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, it's a requirement enshrined in legislation that all school divisions provide a safe, welcoming, and inclusive learning environment. That responsibility, of course, is left to the school divisions to operate, and we're happy to work and support them. We provide, of course, a series of funding opportunities to our school divisions to support them in meeting their goals and objectives. This year alone, we increased funding to the Classroom Complexity Grant by 20%. That's $55 million this year alone to help school divisions address the complexity needs and challenges that they have within their classrooms.
Honourable member.
Given that Alberta has the highest youth unemployment rate in the entire country, and given in my riding young people are struggling to find entry-level jobs, which is impacting their mental health and well-being, and given that these are ambitious young Albertans who want to work, contribute, and build their future here, to the Minister, why is this government failing an entire generation of young people looking to participate in our economy.
Honourable member, I'm struggling to find the connection between your first question and your supplemental, but I'll let the minister try to answer it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I do want to thank the member opposite for the question. He has raised a very important issue that is top of mind for the Premier and for myself, youth unemployment. I am proud to say that last month Alberta added over 60,000 jobs, which was over 2/3 of the jobs in the entire country. This is great news for us as a province, but the reality still remains. We have to make sure that youth get that first work experience. They learn the soft skills they need to take them into the next levels of their employment career. And that's why we invested in the youth hiring incentive, helping to offset the risk for businesses, hiring youth, getting them that critical work experience that they need.
Member.
Given that families in my riding are also telling me that life is getting more expensive every single day, and given groceries, rents, utilities, insurance costs are skyrocketing, but this government refuses to increase wages, will the minister tell families in my riding and across this province how they are expected to keep up with the rising cost of living with stagnant wages for the last 6 years?
Good question. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as I mentioned before, we are dealing with an employment crisis across the country. A lot of this has to do with the poor management of the immigration system over the last 10 years by the members opposite's boss in Ottawa. Between 2015 and 2019, we had the triple black swan event here in our country. We had the Liberals in Ottawa, we had the Leader of the Opposition in City Hall in Calgary, and we had the NDP in government, Mr. Speaker. They create a whole bunch of problems that we're fixing, including investing in businesses so they come here, set up shop, and create jobs.
The Honourable Member for Camrose.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Alberta is facing a shortage of trained veterinary professionals in all corners of our province, hurting our agriculture sector and rural economies. This UCP government is taking action to address this shortage, and in September of this year, the first cohort of 100 students have started their 4-year Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program at the University of Calgary. To the Minister of Advanced Education, what specific actions has the Alberta government taken to support this new program?
The Honourable Minister for Advanced Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. Our government is taking decisive action to address the long-standing shortage of trained veterinary professionals that affect the producers and rural communities in our province. Since 2022, we have made significant investments to expand the University of Calgary's Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program. Our goal has been to double enrollment from 50 to 100 for first-year students in every intake, and I'm pleased to share that this expansion has already begun. The first cohort of 100 students began their studies this September. Then this comprehensive approach will ensure Alberta...
The Honourable Member for Camrose.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to the Minister for that answer. Given this government has already invested $68.5 million in capital funding to support the expansion of the veterinary medical program at the University of Calgary, allowing for 50 more students to enroll in the program, and further given the need for veterinarians in my Camrose constituency and other rural communities. To the Minister of Advanced Education, how will more veterinary students studying in Alberta benefit rural communities?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our investment in veterinary training is directly supporting rural Alberta. With enrollment now doubled, more students are completing their clinical work, rotations, and hands-on training in rural practices and livestock settings, many of them choosing to stay and build their careers in those communities. By 28-29, the UCVM is expected to have 400 students in the program, 100 in each year, meaning more future veterinarians who are learning about Alberta and becoming familiar with the needs of rural producers earlier in their training.
Camrose.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and again to the Minister for that answer. Given that attrition is the greatest challenge facing veterinarians' workforce security in Alberta, despite strong demand from students and investment from government in these post-secondary programs, and given that Alberta is competing with other jurisdictions to attract this talent, jurisdictions that often provide generous incentives to relocate. To the Minister of Advanced Education, what safeguards are being implemented to ensure best value for the tax dollars that go towards training this workforce and ensuring that our brightest talent remains in the province?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The best safeguard we have is simple. When we train people here in Alberta, they are far more likely to stay in Alberta. Furthermore, to be accepted into the veterinary program in Alberta, you must be a resident of Alberta. By doubling enrollment and investing in new facilities from WA Ranches to the Spy Hill Veterinary Building, we are ensuring students complete all 4 years of the training here in Alberta, build relationships with local producers, and complete their clinical work in rural communities. Those experiences anchor graduates to our province. These actions ensure the tax dollars we invest result in what Albertans expect: more homegrown veterinarians practicing. And
the honourable member for Lethbridge West.
Mr. Speaker, over the last 2 weeks at Alberta municipalities and rural municipality conferences, I had discussions with many mayors and reeves and rural and urban councillors. Most people I spoke with were very concerned about the creeping overreach of this government into municipalities. Things that are costing them time and money. Things like, I don't know, change election laws, the power to change bylaws and remove councillors, onerous reporting requirements, etc., etc. The list is very long. When will the Minister of Municipal Affairs start meaningful discussions with municipalities that are collaborative and not directive?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have those meetings every single day on this side of the House. We partner with municipalities because we believe that they have a role to play as those closest to the people in the principle of subsidiarity. However, where there are municipalities that need shepherding back to those core services because they are way off in left field someplace and need to be reminded that their residents pay their taxes for one reason: to fill potholes, to deliver water, collect wastewater, to clear roads, to grate roads. Those are the core services we expect municipalities to provide, and we are going to partner with the municipalities to provide exactly that.
Member from Lethbridge West.
Given that the former councillors on that side, opposite, would have vigorously opposed such overreach when they were in municipal office, because I know that those of us on this side absolutely would have, and given that the Minister of Pavement and the wannabe Mayor of Alberta have no idea what municipal governance and operations should look like, why does this government fabricate non-issues and refuse to engage and discuss issues that are important and vital to municipalities?
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member opposite for his courteous tone and language in his question in particular, and I want to tell you that I've never seen municipalities more upset across this province than the 4 years of the NDP terror inserting themselves with all sorts of insane ideas, destroying our economy. Investment in rural Alberta plummeted. We saw farmers protesting these grounds by the thousands, and the members opposite think that they have the relationship with municipal councillors. I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, our relationship is one of collaboration, but one of understanding our different roles. The province as the one constitutionally enabled to establish municipalities and partner with them to deliver those services. We're not going to get confused, Mr.
Minister. Honourable member.
I don't know what to say. Sorry. Given that this government has allowed the skip your property tax shell game of oil companies to continue to accumulate over $250 million in tax arrears, and given that municipalities have been restricted from attracting tax lucrative investments in the renewable energy sector, when is this government going to do something that actually helps and not harms municipalities?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have set up the special liens. We have done PERC. We're continuing to expand that process. We work with municipalities with the PTAS through RMA. Mr. Speaker, I think every single citizen, corporate or individual, needs to pay their taxes. I'll say it here, and I'll say it in downtown Calgary. Municipalities understand that we are the partner. But it is rich of members opposite to talk about royalty or revenue from oil and gas sitting in this chamber after their 4 years of destroying our rural economy by having investment go out to other provinces and to continue to push their woke ideology, anti-energy policies. This side of the government, we believe in energy.
The order. The honourable member for Edmonton Rutherford is the only one we should hear from right now.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans continue to struggle because of 6 years of deliberate UCP health care failures. Not only is this government failing to fix health care, they set it up to fail by sucking taxpayers' dollars out of our public system and giving it to their wealthy friends who profit from unwell Albertans. Hence, we have the corrupt care scandal and ministers with MH Care Rolexes. To the Minister of Health, why won't the UCP get back to basics and stop the American-style healthcare experiment?
Hear, hear.
Point of order was noted at 2:39. The Honourable Minister for Hospitals.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm pleased to again highlight some of the $28 billion and increasing investments we're making in our world-class public health care system. We just announced a major expansion, over 1,000 net new acute care beds for Calgary and Edmonton. We also announced that we're going to work through our surgical backlog by adding 50,000 surgeries over the next 3 years to make sure that more Albertans are waiting in clinically recommended times for their surgery. So, Mr. Speaker, our commitment to the public system is there. It's getting bigger every year, and it's larger than it ever was under the NDP.
Hear, hear.
Honourable member.
Well, given the Premier is reading from the classic Conservative book of degrading health care to force Albertans in need to pull out their credit cards for expensive private care, and given this government continues to hide its record of health care corruption by failing to be honest with the Auditor General, will the Minister of Health just admit this government doesn't believe in free, public, and universal health care?
Yeah.
Point of order was noted at 2:41. The Minister of Hospitals.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We believe in public health care so much we've added 1,000 RNs, LPNs, and healthcare aides over the last year. We've added over 600 physicians. We're building more hospital beds. Mr. Speaker, there's a major announcement coming to the Edmonton area for the Stollery, and there's a major expansion of continuing...
Order, people. We don't have to like the answer to hear it, but we do need to let the answer be heard. Please do your part. Go ahead, Minister.
There's a major expansion coming to the Edmonton area for the Stollery that will be announced shortly, and there's also a major expansion coming to continuing care. That's directly in response to feedback from healthcare professionals who said we need more long-term care capacity so that we can move alternate level of care patients out of hospitals to more appropriate care settings so our hospitals function better.
Good job.
Honourable member.
Well, given that there is an inherent right to public health care because of the medicine chest clause in Treaty 6, and given that this UCP government continues to fail their responsibilities and obligations to consult Indigenous people or care for seniors, people with disabilities, vulnerable Albertans, will the Minister of Health tell us explicitly how this government intends on upholding the medicine chest clause with a two-tiered American-style health care system?
Hear, hear.
In case I didn't say it, there were points of orders at 2:39 and 2:41, and the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, when the members opposite were in government, they didn't take the opportunity to make sure that our Indigenous brothers and sisters actually had the health care that they needed. In fact, Mr. Speaker, when I became the minister, I embedded within my department a Department of Indigenous Health, Mr. Speaker, that is laser focused on improving health care for Indigenous people right across this province. We have Indigenous navigators. We have an anti-racism toolkit. We are continuing to improve in that area.
Member for Leduc, Beaumont. Oops, I think we're done. The no member, because we are out of time. Honourable members, in 30 seconds, we'll continue with member statements.
Member for Calgary Falconridge.
Mr. Speaker, I grew up in Punjab where public health care once served ordinary people well. But over time, accountability vanished, privatization spread, and government/hospital funding across South Asian communities. Equipment broke down, staff were cut, and maintenance was ignored. Meanwhile, private clinics flourished, polished buildings, big marketing budgets, and MBAs driving profits. Many doctors turned public clinics into funnels for their private practices, charging families huge fees, while prescriptions were tied to pharmacies for commissions. Politicians and even healthcare workers became part of a system built on referrals and profit. What didn't happen was better outcomes for regular people. Within 20 years, trust in public hospitals collapsed. Families sold property just to afford major treatments. Mr. Speaker, I saw firsthand what happens when governments dismantle public services. Ordinary families pay the price. And now, the UCP government is following that same playbook. They're weakening public health care, so people are forced to pay for a private system that benefits government friends and insiders. Look at what has already happened. The corrupt care scandal, wasteful lab service privatization, more emergency room closures, and now even a measles outbreak. Obsessed with American-style healthcare, this UCP does not even know they're destroying their own children's futures. They won't even call a public inquiry into corruption because they know what the results will be. Mr. Speaker, this isn't leadership. It's cruelty, chaos, and corruption. And it's Albertans who are paying the price. Enough is enough. We must stand for Alberta's families. We must stand for public health care. We know that better is possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order has been noted at 2:46. I will call on the member for Calgary, Boular-McCall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The UCP is failing on all fronts when it comes to public safety, law and order, and the rule of law. Albertans continue to raise public safety concerns, from petty crimes to snatching on streets, break-ins, vehicle thefts, arsons, gun violence, and more recently, extortion. The government response from the day one has been and continues to be political grandstanding and shifting the blame onto others. When they discuss the broken bail system, they fail to note that 70% of our jail population is in pretrial detention. And while it needs serious reforms, the UCP government will never mention how that system continues to over-detain Indigenous, Black, and person of color people. Mr. Speaker, any government serious about addressing public safety concerns facing Albertans will invest in the root causes of the problem. They will invest in the social determinants of justice. But under this UCP, employment is skyrocketing, youth unemployment is at its highest, houselessness is at its highest, access to health care has never been this bad, and public education funding is at the lowest level in the entire country. Instead of standing up for the Albertans' right, they are the one trampling on Albertans' charter rights, be those the rights of people in pretrial detentions, teachers, or trans youth. Instead of upholding the rule of law, they are the ones embroiled in scandals and corruption investigation every day. No one trusts them to follow the rule of law, much less uphold the rule of law. Mr. Speaker, Albertans deserve far better than this government. They deserve a government focused on them and their priorities. And Alberta New Democrats stand ready to be that government come next election. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Deputy Government House Leader with a point of order at 2:48.
Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Presenting petitions, notices of motions, introduction of bills.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise and move first reading of Bill 13, the Regulated Professions Neutrality Act. Mr. Speaker, this new piece of legislation being introduced will ensure that regulated professionals can freely express themselves and are treated fairly by their regulators. Freedom of expression is a fundamental value for not only Albertans, but for Canadians. The Regulated Professions Neutrality Act will ensure that people like Leah McInnes, who is sitting in the gallery right now, Mr. Speaker, will never fear losing her license or her career because of a social media post, an interview, or a personal opinion expressed on their own time. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud to rise and move first reading of Bill 13, the Regulated Professions Neutrality Act.
Honourable members, the Honourable Minister of Justice has moved first reading of Bill 13, Regulated Professions Neutrality Act. Those in favour of the motion for first reading, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. That is, the motion is carried.
Bill 13, Regulated Professions Neutrality Act, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
The Honourable Deputy Government House Leader.
Only to make sure that we can get our tablings in, and I advise the Assembly that pursuant to Standing Order 7, sub 8, the daily routine may continue past 3 p.m. if necessary.
Great. The Honourable Member for Edmonton-Glenora.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I have a letter from Travis Friesen, a grade 11 student from Spruce Grove, Stony Plain, talking about overcrowding in their school and they need to invest in public education.
Any others? Oh, okay. Edmonton South.
Thank you.
South? No?
No, thank you.
Okay. Vamp Kananaskis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to table a letter from the Executive Director of the Canmore Pride Society begging the Premier not to invoke the notwithstanding clause that she has done in Bill 9.
Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I table the 2 articles that I spoke about yesterday, Alberta on Right Path to Better Health Care and the Leach Plan to increase physician work flexibility in Alberta, a victory for patients, as MEI.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Highlands Norwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to table the requisite number of copies of a poem from a student named Remy Laboucan, who's a transgender student in Southern Alberta, and I urge all members to read their incredible poem. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Cypress Medicine Hat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to table 5 copies of an article titled "Federal Government Seeks to Retroactively Change Laws in Supporting Long-Term Care for Veterans."
Are there any more tablings? Seeing none.
Tablings to the clerk. Deferred divisions.
Okay. We are at points of order. Help us all. At 1:53, a point of order was called. The Honourable Deputy Government House Leader.
I have 152, but it's the one called by the Government House Leader. At the time, the Leader of His Majesty's Official Opposition was speaking and said something along the lines, as I have it written down, interesting that the Premier went back to her usual thing about blaming reptilian shapeshifters who apparently run AHS. Now, Mr. Speaker, there are a number of different precedents here I'd like to appeal to, but 2 of them in particular. Pandering to extremists was a heckle when Speaker Cooper was in the chair on the afternoon of March 27, 2024, page 886 of Hansard of that day, and it was apologized and withdrawn. Tinfoil hat on again, the Premier has, to imply that the Premier, also March 27, 2025, page 2742. Both of these precedents speak to exactly what the Leader of His Majesty's Official Opposition was doing, attempting to employ some sort of allusion to conspiracy theories for the Premier. I think that we're okay with colourful language. It was directed particularly for the Premier, and it seemed to imply something of a conspiratorial nature, which has in the past been ruled out of order. I'll leave this point in your capable hands.
Leader of the Official Opposition, or the House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I disagree with the Government House Leader. In this case, the reference to reptilian shapeshifters, similar to references from chemtrails, things that this government talks about, and consults on is a matter of debate, in my opinion. Where the government makes their decisions and how those decisions are informed should be a matter of debate. I also disagree with the Deputy Government House Leader when he refers to tinfoil hat being ruled out of order as a heckle because it has been, but because it implies that the individual member is a liar. That is why tinfoil hat, not because it has anything to do with conspiracy theories, because we cannot do indirectly what we cannot do directly. You can't call people liars, but it is a matter of debate who the government is consulting with. And in this case, it was not literal. We do not believe there are reptilian shapeshifters.
No, absolutely not.
We do, however, think that there are conspiracy theorists, that there are a lot of very outlandish, unscientific ideas that this government has entertained in the past, and the Leader of the Official Opposition was making an allusion to that. Very specifically, Mr. Speaker, when you have an organization and the directors of that organization have changed repeatedly and at the government's behest, a joke, a colorful language to talk about who knows who's running that organization, I think it's a matter of debate. I look forward to your ruling, Mr. Speaker.
Well, thank you, and probably nobody enjoys colorful language more than I do, as long as it's in order. And the colorful language is one thing, but there is point of order under 23 HI or J about suggesting what somebody else means or thinks, and I think this is definitely in that area, so I will request an apology and withdrawal.
On behalf of the member, I apologize and withdraw.
Points 2, 3, and 4. We're very close together. Do we deal with these separately or all at once? That was a it wasn't just a rhetorical question. It was, but I'll leave it to the Deputy Government House Leader to introduce the points.
I can speak to 2 points of order that I have you calling on at 157 and 158. Both can be combined, if that's clear. At the time, the member from Edmonton-Glenora was heckling. Both instances used the phrase cover-up, referring directly to the Premier as she was answering, and moments later in the second question, 158, and a cover-up, trying to answer the Premier's question for her. I raise this because there are a number of precedents, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to appeal to, referring to a cover-up in this chamber being unparliamentary. And I'll list some of them, though this is not extensive. Of course, there's March 1st, 1999, Speaker Kowalski, where the member withdrew. There's December 9th, 1997, Speaker Kowalski, where the member withdrew the comment. There was May 4th, 1994, Speaker Schumacher, member withdrew. February 11th, 1993, Schumacher as well. Acting Deputy Speaker Johnson in March 25th, 1992. December 10th, 1990, Speaker Schumacher. There are other ones where cover-up, also Speaker Kowalski, April 27, 2009, and covering up the truth, May 9th, both of them, Speaker Kowalski. One was caution and the second was unparliamentary language. Mr. Speaker, there's lots of precedent. It was very clear that it was directed. I don't think there's any debate that that's what was said. I'd be interested to hear what the opposition government House Leader has to say. We just kindly ask the member to apologize, withdraw, and to no longer accuse government members or us as a whole of covering things up.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And to the Deputy Government House Leader, I say asking is not getting. The idea that this government may never again be in this chamber, a debate will continue to take place, especially given the Auditor General's report and the behavior that we've seen as to whether this government is engaging in corruption and cover-ups. Specifically, on April 14th, 2025, in a point of order debate, very similar to this one, the Deputy Government House Leader made an argument almost exactly the same, and in fact, there are several paragraphs of the references that he made to previous Speaker rulings, including cover-up and corruption. We have been here in this place before, Mr. Speaker, and had this discussion in the past. On April 14th, 2025, the Speaker did not find a point of order because, like on April 14th, 2025, as well as March 25th, 2025, the Speaker was looking at the context in which cover-up and corruption was said. And so I think the reading of the blues is incredibly important, because where this has been found a point of order is when member has tried to complete someone else's sentence and made it appear as if an individual was admitting to a cover-up or corruption as part of the heckling. but it has not been found a point of order when we are talking about government, because the heckling and the banter that goes back and forth between both sides of this chamber is certainly something that all members are familiar with across decades. In previous rulings about this type of heckle, it has specifically been ruled not a point of order, and the context and what was being said around that was very important. Now, I raise this because I do not have the benefit of the blues, Mr. Speaker, and so your reading of what was being said around that time will be important. I did not hear the exact timing, so I don't know if it was completing a sentence or accusing an individual member, but I suspect not, because that would have been unparliamentary, and the member from Edmonton-Glenora avoids being unparliamentary wherever possible. So with your help with the blues, please, I look forward to your ruling.
Thank you. Well, I don't think there's anything in the blues that really disagrees with either the government or the opposition's versions of the events. And I guess you could say that the word cover-up and corruption can be matters of debate. But I'll take us back to a bright, shiny day and called March 20th and 2025, where the member of Glenora was asked to apologize for shouting corruption, not because of the word, but rather because it was said so often that it was creating disruption. And I think today it's pretty similar to that, so I'll ask the member to stand up and apologize and withdraw.
Happy to stand up, apologize, and withdraw.
Honourable member, and for those watching, that is the right way to do what was just done. I'm sorry to say there's so many notes today that I have to look for them now to make sure I have the right one. Somewhere around 211, there was... I have a 206. I got points orders 5, 6, and 7. How great is that? Why don't you try to tell us what you think happened there?
Sure. So I'll just clarify for the chair what I understand. There's a 206 that I would like to bundle together with 239, 248, 241, and 246. Separate from that, I'd like to withdraw a point.
Do it one at a time. There's so many. You know what? I'm just not going to keep track of all the.
Okay. Well, this one's straightforward.
The great and crazy work that was done today. Please
Yes.
deal with the 5, 6, and 7 the best you can.
So, Mr. Speaker, I don't know 5, 6, and 7. If you could cite a time, I'm happy to answer. 211. We have missed 206. I'm happy to return to it. With 211, I will withdraw 2 of the 211, but there is one that I will keep. So there are 3 at 211 that I have marked, according to what you say, as said in the chair. So the single one was that from a sedentary position, the member from Lethbridge West shouted back an expletive that the entire chamber heard at audible volume. I hope to goodness that you have heard it as well. Had you not, I'm certain that members on this side of the House and that, along with members of the dais, can cite it. And if you'd prefer me to repeat it, I can. I'd prefer just to say it's unparliamentary language. We ask for an apology.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, at 211, 2 members were heckling at the same time. The combination of that language sounded like an expletive. And I will say that some members of my caucus heard it as an expletive, but what was actually said was the word balderdash. I've checked with the member, I've checked with other members who are around that person, and with our new ambient mics, perhaps Hansard will be able to help. But in this case, the government House Leader leapt to a conclusion that was incorrect and called the point of order. At the same time as that member said balderdash, someone else was saying funny way of showing it. And I will say we have staff who have watched the video, and it wasn't clear to them either. But I have on the member's honor that he shouted balderdash, which I think is poppycock, and we should not use that language in this chamber. But no, I kid, Mr. Speaker. I don't think it's a point of order, and I hope that perhaps the Blues may clear this up because he did not shout an expletive.
Thank you. Well, the Blues quote the word balderdash. I had more than one note thinking it was another word. But here's what I'm going to say. This is not helpful. And the member from Lethbridge West, that was very loud. And
13.2, it wasn't the member for Lethbridge West, who is now being unfortunately tarnished.
No, that's the, sorry to tell you, but the Blues say it was. Well, okay, that's what I'm going by, all right? So we have a long tradition of going by the blues. If somebody else wants to take the heat for it, whoever said it back there, it might be his seatmate who might be taking the credit, although it's not.
Building, Mr. Speaker.
Then good, then we'll just hear a quick apology and be done with it, won't we? It's not the word. It's just there's a certain level of how loud you can be before you're actually disrupting the place. That's all. The word is acceptable. I think we often talk here about context when you rise way above everybody else, which that was a pretty good example of it. It's not helpful. So please relieve us of that level of excessive volume in the future. Did I hear something about we missed one at 2:06?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. And if you permit me, I'll just group a number of them together. Any of them, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I have counted, and I can cite the times if you like, that cite corruption of the government on our side, we'd like to raise as a point of order, again, in all charity, understanding that despite this reference being ruled parliamentary in the past, and despite the reference being in reference to the government as a whole, and we'll stipulate that in all of these instances that is what happened, this does change based on context and interpretation, and the language itself can be ruled unparliamentary or parliamentary one day and then not the next, and vice versa. So to exactly this end, it's the government's position that the recent decision in the provincial legislature of Ontario, where a member was not only ruled out of order for exactly this, but was named for refusing to withdraw that comment. We believe that this is a shift of the country and across all jurisdictions changing and understanding an indication of what we think is the context that has evolved. So leaving this in your hands, there were 5 instances of it, and for the table's sake and your clarity, it would have been 206, 239, 248, 241, and 246. And 246, there are at least 3 instantiations of it. We would like to posit that it can escalate to an unparliamentary set of phrases when it is disrupting the order of the House, and we are concerned that it will. Thank you.
I'm going to save the opposition time, and I'm pretty sure you're going to forgive me for this. Honourable member, I agree with your concern. I think we talked about that in the context, and I think in my previous ruling where the member was required to apologize and withdraw and did so. I'm going to say, because it was, as you rightly said, it was repeated and context matters. We dealt with the repetition, we dealt with the context, the apology and the withdrawal has already happened, so we'll call this dealt with. My goodness.
212.
Yeah, no, thank you for your help, but I need to, I have 213, but let's call it 212 or 213.
I called the point of order at 2:12. It relates to the point of order that we discussed happening at 2:11. So following a mishearing, so we now know on the record that my member used the word balderdash. By leaping to a conclusion and getting incredibly upset about it, not waiting until points of order to get the clarity to have this discussion in a reasonable way, the government House Leader looked to my member and very clearly said zero class, started hurling insults. I don't appreciate the government House Leader leaping to those conclusions and then beginning to throw insults at my members because of it. So this would be under 23H, I, and J. The allegation and false and unavowed motives have already been proven, and the government House Leader used abusive and insulting language, and it did create disorder on my side as we worked to figure out what had angered him so much that he was using vitriol in the chamber. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this is a point of order, and I also just think both House teams should wait to have the debate on points of order and to get the benefit of the blues in your rulings, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Speaker, I'm happy to rise on this issue, and I'll agree with the member opposite that we should wait to the end, and I'll make that point to my colleagues as well, that we see there's value in having that thoughtful discussion in a tempered manner. However, in spite of the standing order referenced, zero class has never, or any reference to zero or class, been considered a point of order. It was mild, it was not directed at one individual, and were it even standing in debate and heard on microphone while answering or asking a question, it would still not be a point of order. The question of zero class is not been with any precedent I can find or anything close to it associated with the point of order. But I will take the opposition House Leader's concern and agree with her that we should find ways to cool the temperature where and when possible.
Well, what the Blues say is you should feel bad, the mics will catch you, zero class. Was you for an individual or for the group? Debatable. Zero class is not a helpful thing to yell. Kind of like balderdash, if you don't mind my making that comparison. Both were unhelpful comments. I will admonish the government side as I admonish the opposition side for the loud and not helpful language. And once again, say, you may not care what I think, and you don't have to, but we all should care about what the people that elected us think. Today was not this House's most shining hour as for what we were talking about now. So the next point of order, 2:39 p.m.
Mr. Speaker, if I may, I believe all the following points of orders were dealt with in the conversation surrounding the word corruption, and the government has made its case and put that concern on the record. Unless I'm mistaken, I believe the rest are all dealt with or withdrawn.
You're withdrawing?
No, Mr. Speaker, I bundled them together and you made your ruling.
Oh, okay. All right, okay. Thank you.
No,
I
all right with the
understand.
Speaker.
We considered that all part of one because of the similarity, so that means there's nothing to debate at 2:39. But at 2:41,
I'll stipulate remaining that we had 241, 246, 248. I'm not sure if there are others, all to the exact same end. And if I'm not mistaken, all surrounding the word corruption. And if I'm not mistaken, all bundled together.
In that event, we'll consider this dealt with, and yeah, and the anyways, we dealt with it. That's the end of the points of order. I don't know what anybody's cheering about.
It's over.
Orders of the day.
Committee of the Whole.
Honourable members, I'd like to call Committee of the Whole to order. Committee of the Whole has under consideration Bill 5, the Miscellaneous Statutes Amendment Act 2025. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to this legislation? The Honourable Member for Edmonton Glenora.
Waiting for some desk thumping.
Hey. There we go.
Thank you very much for the applause break. It is great to rise here on a Thursday afternoon for a bill that the government brings forward that I am supportive of. It's not every day, but today is definitely a good day. And generally, I will say I try to vote for bills that don't cause harm. That's kind of the minimum standard I've got these days. And today's not only doesn't cause harm, but it actually fixes some mistakes. I'm just going to walk through a couple of them because I think that they are moves in the right direction. So this bill amends 9 different acts. that is pretty typical for a Miscellaneous Statutes Amendment Act. It doesn't always have a huge audience for attention, but I will take this moment to walk through a couple of the pieces. So one of the pieces that's going to be fixed is that there are two sections that repeal some of the very heavy-handed Henry VIII clauses that were put into UCP legislation back in the spring of 2025. We fought against those. We proposed amendments to try to take them out of the legislation. They didn't pass at that time, but the government, I think, has had some opportunity to reflect on them and is bringing forward basically what we were proposing through amendment in this new bill. So that is certainly good news. Those were sections 1 sub 2 around access to information by repealing section 97.1 and section 7 sub 2 of the bill amendment for the Protection of Privacy Act, repealing section 62.1. So good work to the member of the official opposition who proposed those amendments, and good work to the government for even though they weren't acted upon that day, I'm glad they are acted upon today. That probably is what I'm most grateful for in this. There are also amendments to the Alberta Heritage Scholarship Act, Automobile Insurance Act, B Act, Labour Relations Code, Marketing and Agriculture Products Act, Virtual Statistics Act, and Weed Control Act. Often they are really focused on grammatical issues or sequencing. Sometimes in long pieces of legislation the numbers end up out of order. So very typical to see those kinds of amendments. And yeah, back in the fall, about a year ago, the current government split the Freedom of Information and Privacy Act into the Protection of Privacy Act and the Access to Information Act. The following sitting in the spring, there was an amendment to those two acts through a bill called Bill 46, which was highly problematic. This was one of the most problematic areas. We opposed it, and it has been corrected in this piece of legislation. Maybe other amendments that we're proposing this legislative session, even if the government doesn't accept them now, hopefully they will take some opportunity to reflect on them and come back at a future date. We would be happy to vote for government legislation that enacts good policy ideas and makes legislation less bad. That is really the bulk of it. It really is about closing those loopholes that were created around opportunities for major decisions to be made in back rooms and not in public, and for the cabinet to have taken powers away from the larger assembly. Every member of this place, all 87 of us, have a right as well as a responsibility to engage in thoughtful debate, to consider laws before they become laws, and this will certainly fix some of those issues that were created previously. So I am a big fan of transparency, open, honest debate, accountability, and when we are seeing many more cabinet documents getting leaked these days, but we don't get minutes. So not knowing how people voted on things that could be problematic was certainly an issue, and it's being rectified in this by bringing some of those pieces that were delegated to cabinet back into the chamber for full, thoughtful, and transparent debate, and the opportunity for us to hold each other to account and have public votes on them when they are brought forward by the cabinet as recommendations, or things that obviously could be brought forward by private members too. But this really was about delegating significant authority from the chamber to the cabinet. It's coming back through this bill, the Miscellaneous Statutes Amendment Act, Bill 5 of this fall sitting. Typically, miscellaneous statutes are introduced in the final days and move rather quickly. I have a feeling this one may also move quickly, but to be Bill 5 of a legislative session, I wonder if, and the library records everything, Hansard records everything and engages with the library. I bet you this is the earliest numbered Miscellaneous Statutes Amendment Act in the history of the Alberta legislature. Usually it's Bill 40 something or 30 something, but today it's Bill 5. So I'm glad that the government has brought forward a bill that I think is not only making things less bad, it's actually going to improve one of the biggest issues that was created in this time last year. So it's a good news day, and I am pleased that I'll be able to vote for a government bill, and Miscellaneous Statutes Amendment Act it is. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Any other members wishing to join the debate? Seeing none, I will call the question on Bill 5, the Miscellaneous Statutes Amendment Act 2025. On the clauses of the bill, are you agreed? Agreed. Any opposed? Carried. On title and preamble, are you agreed? Agreed. Any opposed? Carried. Shall the bill be reported? Are you agreed? Agreed. Any opposed? That is carried. We will now go to Bill 4, the Public Safety and Emergency Services Statute Amendment Act 2025, number 2. The Honourable Member for Edmonton City Centre.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to rise and speak to Bill 4 at Committee of the Whole. I had the opportunity to speak to this at second reading, and following that have had the chance to speak to a number of people in the community, stakeholders, others that are involved. And you know, Madam Speaker, I had the opportunity to speak with several folks who work in Alberta Sheriffs. And they have been listening to the debate. They're following what's been said in the House about these ongoing work that's being done towards creating the Alberta Sheriff's Police Service. I talked to one member, one sheriff, Madam Speaker. He's a member of the Highway Patrol, nearly 2 decades of service to our province. So this is someone who's been doing this for quite a while. And what he told me, Madam Speaker, is first of all that he appreciated the concerns and the questions that I was raising in debate. But secondly, what he told me was that he's worried because he doesn't know what's going to happen to his job. Because the reality is, Madam Speaker, throughout all of this process, since the very beginning of the minister moving forward with these plans in the spring of last year, he has yet to actually meet and speak with anyone from the sheriffs. The individual sheriffs, this individual sheriff, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, told me that the only time they hear anything about this minister's plans is when he introduces a bill in this House. Now, Madam Chair, that is not dissimilar to what we've seen with this government on so many other fronts. As we've seen them go through the whole process of dismantling and reorganizing Alberta Health Services, we continually hear from employees at all levels of that service, from the front lines to the top levels, who say this government does not communicate with them. They don't know which direction they're going. From day to day, some of them don't even know what department they're going to be part of. So it is concerning, Madam Chair, that as we move forward with this government's plans, as they continue to prepare to spend more money, they've hired a chief for the service, Madam Speaker, and we still have Alberta sheriffs not knowing what's going to happen to them. Because let's be clear, when the minister brought his bill forward in the spring, they were very clear about their concerns. They published an entire letter about it. The minister has not answered any of their questions. Secondly, Madam Speaker, the other day I spoke about in question period and also tabled information that had come forward at a Senate committee with the Honourable Gary Anand-Sanguri, the Minister of Public Safety, federal government, speaking about their intentions regarding the RCMP. And as I noted at that time, he said at that committee that their intention is indeed to move forward with negotiations to extend the contracts beyond 2032. He said as they look at that 7-year time horizon, their expectation is to be able to meet the demands of the provinces and territories vis-a-vis their expectation by renewal. Now, it's interesting, because the minister said, you know, not everyone has signaled that they want to renew. One province is signaling they may not want to renew. So that runs a bit contrary to what the minister said. The minister said he is doing this just in case. It certainly sounds like in his conversations with the public safety minister federally, he is indicating that, in fact, he may not even have an interest in renegotiating. So it's not about a fail-safe, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair. This certainly appears to be about a replacement and an intentional creation of. The minister also noted at that standing committee, our expectation and our direction by the Prime Minister is to work with each and every province and territory and meet them where they're at. Our expectation will be to commence negotiations on a renewal process over the next several months. Now, the minister claims he had a different conversation with that minister after that date. Certainly, if he wants to table that here in the House or give us a bit more of the details, I'd be interested to hear them. But we do know that the province of BC is already in the process and beginning that process of renegotiation and those conversations with the federal government. So let's talk then, Madam Speaker, about the bill itself and this situation. Now, as I said previously with the minister's bill in the spring, we don't disagree that there is a problem. We recognize, and indeed I had some good conversations recently with some folks at rural municipalities of Alberta, some local rural leaders, that indeed they do have concerns about a lack of response when some calls go out. They do have some concerns about staffing and coverage, having an appropriate number of officers available in their area. So we don't have a disagreement about the problem, but what we're talking about, Madam Chair, is whether or not the government is proposing a plausible and sensible and cost-effective, workable solution. And so far, what we have seen is that the minister doesn't even have a business plan. The minister is not able to provide any costing. The minister has provided no detail. And these are questions that have been repeatedly brought forward by the very folks who are going to be this minister's customers. Municipal leaders, Rural Municipalities Association President Kara Westerlund has repeatedly, every time the minister introduces a bill, she's asked for comment and she says, you know what, we'd just love to see a bit of detail. How is this actually going to function? Where are the officers going to come from? How much is this going to cost? And nigh on 18 months later, the minister has not answered a single one of those questions. He has barreled ahead with appointing his new police chief. He's creating all the infrastructure. He's putting all the pieces in place. Now, Madam Speaker, no business, no reasonable businessman or business person will go about starting a business without actually creating a business plan. And they certainly would not be able to go to investors and say, hey, will you give me millions of dollars to set this up, when I won't tell you how it's going to operate. I'm not going to tell you where I'm going to find my staff, and I can't show you a budget or anything about what it's actually going to cost. But by all means, please give me millions of dollars. But the convenient thing for the minister, Madam Speaker, is that he doesn't have to do that, because he just gets to help himself to public dollars. This government, this minister who did not campaign on creating an Alberta provincial police force, indeed said that was something that they were not going to campaign on. They are going ahead and simply helping themselves to Albertans' dollars, taxpayer dollars, to create this without any semblance of a business plan, without being able to show any of the detail, without being able to show that they have buy-in from a suitable number of customers to make this worth the while. And the reason this is concerning, Madam Chair, is because, well, we just got a report from the Auditor General about one of this government's other plans, about this government's plan to privatize laboratory services in the province of Alberta. Now, let us remember, Madam Speaker, that was a 3-year process, starting from 2019, when then Premier Kenney had his health minister cancel the lab hub that was being built here in Edmonton, put everything to a stop, and begin a careful process, or so they said, but certainly it took them 3 years to get there. So that's time spent by all kinds of public servants and requests for proposal and all kinds of other work that was put into this to get us to that point. And what the Auditor General said in his report, which came out yesterday, he found that there was no proper business case ever developed by this government. Think about that, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair. 3 years this government spent putting that together. 3 years they putting together that contract and preparing for that move. 3 years in which they swore up and down, backwards and forwards, that it was going to save money. Absolutely guaranteed. They did not show Albertans a business plan. They showed no detail. What was the reality we ended up with, Madam Chair? The reality we ended up with was that within 6 months of them activating that deal, it collapsed. We had an utter failure of access, failure of coverage, expanded wait times. It had to be all brought back in under the public service where it started. at a cost of an additional $125 million. $125 million for absolutely no gain and a whole lot of pain for Albertans. That's this government's track record of trying to set up complex organizations and complex contracts. And they did it, and it's in good part, because, Madam Chair, they did not even have a business plan. So when the minister stands in this House and says he's going to create this Alberta Sheriff's Police Service, and he has yet to provide any costing, any evidence, any details to this House, to Albertans, to the folks that he says are going to be paying for and buying into this service, to the men and women who are going to be working in this service themselves. Because to be clear, Madam Chair, while the minister stood in question period and said, I don't understand the difference between a police officer and a peace officer, he is the one that is talking about taking folks who are currently sheriffs and training them up to become police. So we are talking about the same thing here. Not every sheriff will become a police officer. But of course, those who won't, the minister has provided them absolutely no detail or clarity on what's going to happen to their job or how it's going to be structured around them. Continuing on that, Madam Chair, again, the member for Cypress Medicine Hat. Student talked about how he's talked with folks in the county there, and they want this service because they want to improve coverage, because they said that is what this is going to do. The minister himself said that during question period the other day, that they are creating this to ensure they provide coverage so that when somebody calls, there is going to be a police officer available. So if only we had an example, Madam Chair, if only we had an example of what coverage for a service in rural areas looks like under this particular government. In fact, we do. What we have is the realities of EMS coverage for rural areas. So for 6 years, Madam Chair, this government has been in charge of EMS services across the province. And we have heard multiple times over 6 years that folks in rural areas, in the more remote areas of our province, struggle to be able to get access to an ambulance, to EMS support when they need it. This government spent multiple years, at least one major committee, a number of commitments to improve that service. And they swore up and down, backwards and forwards, they were going to do that. Madam Chair, it has not improved. The problem still exists. Not only do folks still have challenges getting an ambulance, folks have challenges finding an emergency room where they can actually get help and service. And that's not just me talking. Dr. Paul Parks, former president of the Alberta Medical Association, he's posted a number of threads on Twitter talking about real-life examples where this government is failing to provide coverage in rural areas when folks need help. He tells one story about a male in his 20s with severe asthma, very short of breath, having trouble breathing. Presented in distress to his local emergency department, but he didn't realize it was closed. So he called 911 for help. There was no ambulance available to support. All of the EMS crews were dispatched on calls or transporting patients hundreds of kilometers away to the nearest hospitals that were available and open. By the time EMS was able to respond to that patient, he was in extreme condition, no longer able to talk or respond. Thankfully, that young Albertan survived. But as Dr. Park says, there are concerns that he may have some lasting brain damage from the delays to accessing life-saving care. Now, unlike the member for Cypress Medicine Hat, Dr. Parks has not been called out and had an article in the Medicine Hat News pointing out that the anecdotes he's stating are false or were misattributed significantly. I did table that article the other day, that the member for Cypress Medicine Hat stood in this House and told a long story in which he accused RCMP of failing to respond. But when they actually went and investigated that story, they found that, in fact, when the person called, they did not tell the RCMP that it was an emergency situation. So the RCMP ranked it with the urgency with which it was reported. So the fact is, Madam Chair, we have a government that has proven it is unable to put together a proper business plan for this kind of transition, and that when they attempted to do so without that business plan, it cost Albertans $125 million. Because this government treated it as a political endeavor, an ideological endeavor, and not a carefully thought out actual plan to provide better access and services for Albertans. What we have is a government that, again, promised it would fix the very same kinds of problems it is swearing it's going to fix with this new service, for which they present no details, no costing, no budget, no business plan. That on that issue, they continue to fail rural Albertans each and every day. That we have a young man here who, in fact, may have permanent brain damage because he could not access his local emergency department or get an ambulance. And we have a government then that is in this House disparaging the men and women of the RCMP with anecdotes that then later are questioned, and we have newspaper articles calling them false. And on this basis, this minister is asking us to trust him to move forward with something that a vast majority of Albertans have been very, very clear they do not support or want. He is on his third bill moving forward something on which just this past summer they said they were consulting. Now, let's be clear, Madam Chair. You know, when I spoke with some folks at RMA, indeed, they did say, you know what, we would like to explore an alternative to the RCMP. I know that south of Calgary, we have a number of counties and towns that are having conversations about a regional police service. And certainly, you know what, they should have whatever options they want. Perhaps they want to form their own, perhaps they want to sign a contract with Calgary. If this minister wants to credibly stand up and offer a different option for them, if he feels that the provincial government should be getting into the provision of that service, offering these kinds of franchises, he owes it to Albertans to show significantly more detail, to show significantly more accountability for the money he has already spent and is intending to spend. Albertans deserve a great deal more clarity, detail, and accountability. And it does a great disservice, in fact, to those towns, those counties, those areas in Alberta that may be looking for an alternative when the minister says, I'm going to build this whole thing and we'll talk about details later. Because to be clear, Madam Chair, the minister has also not consulted with municipalities about actually building this. Kara Westerlund, president of the Rural Municipalities of Alberta, has been very clear on that point as well. They've repeatedly asked the minister to come and talk to them about it, share details. Let's talk turkey. Let's look at numbers. The minister refuses to do it. And the track record we have of this government is when they refuse to provide information, when they refuse, as they repeatedly do, to be accountable or transparent, it usually means Albertans are about to lose a whole lot of money. It usually means there's some kind of a sole source contract, maybe to a friend or supporter of this government. Now, I recognize when we're talking about an Alberta Sheriff's Police Service, he's not contracting it out, he's building it in-house, so fair enough. But what we have seen is a disturbing pattern of what certainly appears to be corruption and putting political interests well ahead of the best interests of Albertans, what Albertans are actually asking for, and what Albertans actually need.
The government renews its concerns surrounding the language of, quote, what certainly seems to be corruption under 23 HI and J, particularly J, language that is very likely to cause a disorderly house, and accusing this minister of what is clearly corruption is particularly concerning, Madam Chair. So we ask the member to continue the stand of debate, but to withdraw and apologize for those statements.
The honourable member for Edmonton City Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, to be clear, I said what certainly has the appearance of. I did not attribute it to this particular minister. In fact, I was quite clear that this minister is not signing any outside contracts. So I'm endeavoring to be respectful of the sensitivity of the government and their insistence on the most banal of language in talking about very serious issues for us here in the province. But I'll leave it to you, Madam Chair, to give your ruling.
Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out what the ruling was on the previous point of order earlier today, in which a point of order was not found. However, great caution was given that we may end up on this. We'll find your time back, honourable member, for whatever was left there. But this may very likely end us down a path in which we will find these words and these contexts to be out of order. And so let's take this as a learning opportunity and make sure we're being respectful to the debate and the level of debate in which we expect in this chamber. So, honourable member, you may proceed.
Thank you. I recognize your caution and will be careful, Madam Chair. I believe I'm coming up on about time. And indeed, Madam Chair, we've had this debate multiple times. Again, this is the third time the minister is bringing forward a bill to create this service, providing no transparency to Albertans about what he intends to do, how he intends to build it, where he's going to find the officers. As has been noted by RMA President Kara Westerlund, this is an issue that is afflicting police services across the province and across Canada. This issue of recruitment, finding enough officers to be able to staff and put in place. So these are not just the words that I'm bringing forward. I am reflecting what is being said directly from the people who this minister says he is creating this service for. And perhaps the minister will rise and speak, and I hope when he does, he can give us some indication of when it is that he thinks he will actually be able to, actually be willing to, go and speak with RMA, with these municipal leaders, with these people, provide them actual plans, actual details, so we do not find ourselves in yet another situation where this government has wasted hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars, has not failed to put forward an actual business plan for something as serious as a provincial police force. We're not playing games here, Madam Chair. This is something that should be done with full transparency, full accountability, and actual debate and discussion with all Albertans. That is not what we've seen so far. I suppose we still have 2 stages of debate in which the minister could choose to make a difference on that, and we will see if he does. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there others? The honourable member for Edmonton-McClung.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Pretty pleased to rise and offer a few comments and remarks this afternoon in respect of Bill 4. And I want to start off by saying, Madam Chair, that the average Albertan living either in urban Alberta or a rural setting probably could not name you the various different police forces and branches of the Sheriff's Department that are actually in existence right now. We may see various different vehicles on highways as we travel in between cities and rural areas, and some of them are a little surprising to see. Most Albertans will look at a sheriff's vehicle, and if they're of a certain age, will think that they're formerly delivering documents, because that's really what sheriffs ended up doing in years past. But now, of course, they're more involved in regular police work. There used to be, and maybe still are in many jurisdictions, a county cop, as they're commonly known, county police. And some towns have hired a private police officer to police their own small communities. And yet, we see now a situation where the government is, by a drip, drip, drip system, trying to amalgamate these various different forces into what they hope will become an Alberta police force that will serve the whole province. Yet, they have yet to prove the need for such a force. And I certainly haven't heard it in my travels as the Shadow Minister for Transportation and Economic Corridors. Haven't heard people clamoring for the removal of the RCMP as the police force of record in Alberta, and to be replaced with something that the current government seems to be manipulating in place by piece of legislation after piece of legislation to eventually end up with a framework that would allow them to replace the RCMP. And Madam Chair, if one went to Alberta municipalities conferences, which I did with many of my colleagues on this side of the House, and there were many members of the government caucus there as well, one would have had a choice of different breakout sessions to attend. And I did attend one that was really quite interesting, Madam Chair, and it was the RCMP hosted breakout session, and it was a panel of high-ranking RCMP officers, I believe the Deputy Superintendent of the Alberta RCMP, as well as some other high-ranking officials on a panel answering questions directly from attendees of the Alberta Municipalities Conference. And the room was packed, Madam Chair. As quite often at conferences like this, you'll find some of the breakout sessions have minimal attendance. This one attracted a full house, standing room only. And it wasn't, Madam Chair, as one might expect from a full house of attendees at a conference going to a panel hosted by the RCMP. It wasn't a session where people were lining up angrily, coming forward with concerns and vitriol towards the RCMP. In fact, it was the opposite. And folks were standing up and actually commending the RCMP for their long-term service to their communities and the whole province. And this wasn't just one individual standing up and doing so, Madam Chair. It was the tenor of the whole room. And the goal was polite questioning of the RCMP administrators who were hosting the panel, and it was a very, very useful question and answer period that I was happy to be able to observe. So what the motivation is for replacing the RCMP, which appears to be the ultimate goal of this government, is something that's lost on most Albertans, because in that room, which constituted an audience of elected representatives from a cross-section of towns right across Alberta, there certainly was not a call for replacing the RCMP. It was certainly an opportunity to exchange concerns about manpower and financing and so forth, but it wasn't a session that rose to the level of we want to get rid of the RCMP. It was a matter of let's deal with on an ongoing basis the issues of concerns that we have and carry on with the services of the RCMP in the communities that they came from. So once again, I fail to understand the motivation for the government's determination to little by little end up with a police force that is an Alberta police force that replaces the RCMP. The different branches that we have right now, Madam Chair, I think could probably be communicated a little better to the people of Alberta, because as I said before, many could probably not name you the different branches of the Alberta Sheriff's Service, for example, that actually exist already. 6 branches, in fact: court security and prisoner transport. I saw some of this activity happen in my role as a volunteer probation officer when I was in university. Of course, dealt with court security and prisoner transports in my role as a volunteer probation officer when I was assigning people to period of probation, especially if they were in city cells when that happened. Protection and communication services, investigation and surveillance, Sheriff Highway Patrol, that's the outward-facing role that we see many sheriffs doing right now, and on an increasing basis, more so than we have in the past. Fish and Wildlife Enforcement Services now, which are being told to become more like police officers and in fact carrying firearms in a transitionary role towards becoming police officers, and fugitive apprehension sheriff support teams. So these 6 branches, many of which are unknown to the public as the role of the Alberta sheriffs. And of course the RCMP have a role which is quite crucial throughout the policing in Alberta. One of the things that was done with the RCMP, Madam Chair, which really affected the recidivism rate in rural Alberta, was a program that the NDP government of the day in 2015-2019 worked in concert with the RCMP to make sure that those who were repeat offenders were focused on, and they were arrested, and the crime rate went down in those areas where these individuals were arrested and taken out of circulation, and it was a noticeable impact. It was actually a fairly small thing with a fairly small investment, with a small team of RCMP investigators focusing on the repeat offenders, which had a great impact. So there are lots of things that can be done, but throwing the baby out with the bathwater isn't one of them. And most Albertans that I spoke to, certainly those that I talked to at the Alberta Municipalities Conference, were looking at going on an ongoing basis, fixing problems that they found, but not getting rid of the RCMP.
City Centre.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize. In my zest to speak to the bill, I neglected to move a motion that I had. I would like to request that the votes on Bill 4's clauses be severed as follows. Section 1 and 2 to be voted on as Block A. Section 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 to be voted on as Block B. This is simply because we wish to show that while we have concerns with this government's plans for an Alberta provincial police force, we do support the other pieces that are in this bill, and particularly the amendments to Clare's Law.
Perfect. I just want to clarify that you're making a request, not a motion.
Request.
Perfect. It's been the practice of the past that this committee grants such requests, and so the request for clarification is that we vote in 2 blocks, Block A being sections 1 and 2 of the bill, Block B being sections 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 in, and 9 in the bill.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay. Perfect. Is there any other members wishing to speak to the bill, or shall we proceed to the vote? The honourable member for Edmonton Castle Downs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm rising to speak today to the Public Safety and Emergency Services Statutes Amendment Act 2025. I've spoken this House at length about the work that I've done in collaboration with Edmonton Police Services and RCMP, specifically K Division, in my background as social work. Today, I would like to focus a lot of my remarks on kind of how we got here, what the RCMP does across the province, and just to remind government that at no point during the election did this Premier talk about a Alberta police force. So we've heard loud and clear from Albertans that this is absolutely not something that they are wanting. We've seen that the UCP has no credibility when it comes to public safety, specifically rural Albertans. And here we are with them forcing through Bill 4, a massive police restructuring that nobody wanted and nobody asked for, and certainly this Premier didn't talk about in the election. When it comes to the RCMP in Alberta, there are detachments that cover over 660,000 square kilometers. That's 99% of Alberta's geography, often in remote and rural areas. Specifically, the RCMP has the K Division, which is located in Edmonton, and this works with federal, provincial, municipal, First Nation policing services all across the province. The RCMP in Alberta is the country's second largest RCMP division and operates through, I believe, 113 detachments across the province. So that's an incredible amount of detachments and services and land space that is being offered by the RCMP in collaboration with municipalities and First Nations. Now, when we are talking about that big space, what that means is that geographically it's significant. There's 5 districts, east, west, central, south. There's also about 2,200 regular and civilian members that work under this division, along with numerous public service and municipal employees attached to that. So that is a significant amount of Albertans that are working within this policing system that would be dismantled. Now, we haven't seen a real plan for what this government plans to do, but I'm concerned, Madam Chair, because a lot of what K Division does is specialized. And so they have units specifically tasked with things such as integrated national security enforcement teams. They have the sexual assault review team. This is kind of a one-stop shop where you can go and get all of the information in one space. These are specialized officers and civilians that work together to keep Albertans safe. This is a system that has been working well. It is a system that I am afraid will get neglected under this government. We've watched them cut services for things like victim services. We've watched them attack vulnerable communities. Under this government, we've seen the rates of domestic violence skyrocket. And when you're taking away specialized units in policing, there is concern that things will get missed. We know that there's an incredible collaboration between police officers, RCMP, and social workers that work in the specialized unit of the ICE division, which is the Integrated Child Exploitation. And they work specifically with Calgary, Edmonton, and their police services. Now, we have a government that talks a lot about wanting to protect children, and they have introduced laws that I would argue, and most Albertans would argue, do the exact opposite of protecting children. But when we have a unit designated specifically to support children's exploitation, and they are dismantling the police services that work together to protect those children, it is hypocrisy when we have this government saying that this is something that they see so very important. Now, the officers that work in ICE are incredible human beings. These are officers that look at child pornography, sexual exploitive material of children. When we are investigating these crimes, we don't want to be delayed because we don't have someone specialized to do the work. That is a risk that this government is willing to take by dismantling the services and policing that already exists and moving to an Alberta policing system. I think part of this legislation is good, and I support it, specifically when it comes to Clare's Law. I think it's essential that police be able to share with potential victims information about their partner. But I'm worried that once the information has been shared with the potential victim, then what? We don't have a system in place from this government that actually supports victims of crime. Victim services has been cut. Women's shelters have been cut. All of the things that those women would rely on, and vulnerable people no longer are being funded by this government. So they're putting in a piece of legislation in Bill 4 that's supportive, that we support, but there's so much more that they're should be doing. And so with that, Madam Chair, I will wrap up my remarks for this piece, but I really strongly encourage the government to reconsider what they're doing with this legislation. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Goldbar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I only want to offer a few brief comments on Bill 4. And in doing so, I want to bring together a few threads that I think this government has left in I don't know, I destroyed that metaphor before I even completed it, but I wanted to bring a few threads together and discuss my concerns around the creation of an independent police force here in the province of Alberta that Bill 4 continues to do. And that's namely the creation of an independent police force. I want to discuss the recall legislation that this government has introduced and has amended, and the government's recent enthusiasm for stripping charter rights and introducing the notwithstanding clause when it deems convenient. So, with the implementation of recall, what we saw are government members who are now victims of the weapon that the government itself created and intended to use against its political enemies. And they're struggling, working overtime, trying to figure out how they get themselves out of this trap, right? And backbenchers who are subject to impending recall legislation, I sincerely hope that they listen to the words that I have to say, because I have similar fears that the creation of an independent police service, which this minister is continuing to do through Bill 4, will also bite members and their constituents with these unintended consequences. So, you know, when the independent police service was created in the spring of this year, the Rural Municipalities Association issued a policy discussion document, and it highlighted the fact that even though the legislation says that the police service will be independent of government, in the same piece of legislation, it also gives the minister really broad powers to direct the work of the police service. Now, I want members to consider two things here, because we're creating an independent police service that will be broadly under the direction of the Minister of Public Safety, and we have a government that is enthusiastic about stripping away Albertans' charter rights using the notwithstanding clause. And let me just remind members what potential legal rights could be overridden with the use of the notwithstanding clause. It's the right to life, liberty, and security of the person, the right to be secure against unreasonable search and seizure, the right not to be arbitrarily detained or imprisoned, for example. Now, just think if we have an independent police service and a government that uses the notwithstanding clause, just for example, to override the charter when it comes to the Alberta Traffic Safety Act. All of a sudden, we have a police service that is under the direction of the minister that could stop anybody that they want for no reason at all, detain them for as long as they like, and never have to tell them what's going on. That is the reality that this government is creating here in this province, and every member of this House should be terrified of that possibility. This is not just a housekeeping procedure, housekeeping bill. This isn't about improving police service. This is about giving the minister the power to have a police service under his direction to pursue whoever he sees to be his enemies.
The Honourable Minister of Water.
Under 23 H, I, and J, the member clearly said we could look at the blues, but it clearly said that the minister, the deputy premier, wants to do something so that he could go against the law, and he's actually a person that actually does it creates the laws. Madam Speaker, imputing false motive. So I actually think that the member should stand and withdraw and apologize.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton-Goulbar.
I didn't impute any false motives. I'm potentially offering some hypothetical scenarios, and I don't believe that this is a point of order.
Honourable Government House Leader.
Sure, Madam Chair. The way I heard it is, member from Edmonton-Goulbar insinuated that the Honourable Minister and Deputy Premier would use this legislation to attack his enemies. That would certainly be imputing false motive, Madam Chair. And so if that was in fact the direct quote, with my fuzzy memory, I do want to get to the remainder of get to the balance of this afternoon because we have votes to get to, but I'll leave it in your very capable hands.
Honourable members, I don't have the benefit of the blues, and I think that there's a very fine line in which has been walked on. Now, if the member was insinuating that the minister would be committing crimes or intend to commit crimes, that would certainly be out of order, and he would need to apologize for it. So take this as a great caution, because if it happens again, there will be an apology. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to clarify my statements. I was not imputing false motives to the minister. I don't, and I didn't say that he was committing crimes. What I am saying is that I don't trust the government to have an independent police service at its disposal at the same time that it's shown an enthusiasm for shredding charter rights. Because what we have is a potential where a government could have a police service under its direction and use the notwithstanding clause to strip Albertans of legal rights against unreasonable search and seizure, against detainment for no reason at all. All of those things are nightmare scenarios that our Charter of Rights and Freedoms have protected for decades. And I have grave concerns that this is the path that we are going down, and I certainly hope that all members in this chamber share those concerns. And with that, I would like to conclude my remarks.
Any other members wishing to speak? Seeing none, we will vote in two sections, as mentioned earlier, on Bill 4, the Public Safety and Emergency Services Statutes Amendment Act 2025, number 2, on Block A, which is sections 1 and 2 of the bill. Are you agreed? Agreed. Any opposed? That is carried. We will now vote on Block B. We will now vote on Block B, which is sections 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Are you agreed? Agreed. Any opposed? No. That is carried. On the title and preamble, are you agreed? Agreed. Any opposed? No. Carried. On shall the bill be reported, are you agreed? Agreed. Any opposed? That is carried. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the committee rise and report Bills 4 and 5.
Having heard that motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. So carried. The Honourable Member for Athabasca, Barhead Westlock.
Madam Speaker, the Committee of the Whole has had under consideration certain bills. The committee reports the following bills: Bill 5, Bill 4. I wish to table copies of all amendments considered by Committee of the Whole on this date for the official records of the Assembly.
Does the Assembly concur in the report? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. So carried. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to move that the Assembly be adjourned until 1:30 p.m. on Monday, November 24th.
Having heard that motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. So carried. House stands adjourned until next week.